As a journalist and author of your great-great-grandmother's seminal biography, you certainly are taking on the legacy of Madam C.J. Walker. So how and why did you decide to take on this responsibility?
This is a 50-year journey, and I will tell you, as I was growing up, the last thing I thought I would have been doing is telling Madam Walker's story. My mother was vice president of the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company, and my real passion was writing, and my parents encouraged me to write and to become a journalist. But I was surrounded by these things that had belonged to the Walker women when I was growing up. Madam Walker's silverware we used every day had CJW, her monogram on it. The china that we used on special occasions had belonged to her. So 50 years ago, when I was a senior in high school, I wrote my first paper, but it was about A'Lelia Walker and the Harlem Renaissance and her life in Harlem. And then when I was in graduate school at Columbia in journalism, Phyllis Garland, my advisor, insisted that I write my paper about Madam Walker and A'Lelia Walker. But she's the one who said, I recognize your name. I wasn't saying anything about Madam Walker. But that validated the story for me at a time when very few people really were clamoring at my door. Nobody was clamoring at my door to write about Madam Walker. But that's led to 4 books. I think the time is right. This story that had been bouncing around Hollywood for a long time finally got the advocates that it needed.
And what would you say is the greatest message here in the story? And I know it's difficult to pinpoint one.
Right. Well, I think when you write a book that has 250 plus pages and 20 years worth of research, only a teeny bit of that will end up in a 4-part series. But I think Octavia Spencer is so powerful in this role, and you can see the courage of Madam Walker. You can see the arc of her life from starting out as a washerwoman and really feeling that she was at the bottom of society and transforming herself into a woman who became a millionaire, who empowered other women, but who also used that money and that influence as a philanthropist, as a political activist, as a patron of the arts. I mean, some of the things that don't come through as much is the generational wealth that she created for Black families, is what is her political activism on the level of holding a convention in 1917, 2 years before Mary Kay was born, and giving prizes not just to the women who sold the most products, but to those who contributed the most to charity. And then at the end of the convention, sending a telegram to President Woodrow Wilson urging him to support legislation to make lynching a federal crime. And that translates even past that decade with women who were beauticians helping to pay for the buses that took people to the March on Washington in 1963. So that activism is a very little told story of Madam Walker's life. She knew when she was creating hair care products that women needed some solution for the infections, the scalp infections, but she knew they needed even more education and financial independence.